Hi guys, Sajid Amit here, and I just want to take you guys through my impressions of the Dunu Arashi. So treat these as first impressions because I've not spent a lot of time with this. This discussion is going to be broken down into a coverage of its specs. Then I'll talk about the tonality, and then finally I'll talk about technical performance. So guys, by way of a disclaimer, I bought this with my own money. I bought it from HeadFi Classifieds. I bought it from my friend, One-Eyed Hito, and that's his HeadFi handle. And the reason I bought this from Hito is that, he did insist that he wanted me to hear it, and he wanted me to give my views on it. And as soon as he sold it to me, he started missing it, so he got a new one. So big shout out to One-Eyed Hito for selling this to me and letting me use it and review it. So yeah, I was pretty excited because Dunu is one of those brands that just evokes a lot of respect. The DK3001, which was one of their first IMs, was one of the first mid-tier IMs that I owned and bought with my own money, and I loved it. It was, for its time, very avant-garde in its sort of accessorization. It's very plush and luxurious sort of unboxing. The premium materials that it was made with, the very premium cable that it came with. The Dunu does all these things well. One of my friends says the Dunu makes you feel like a king, and I do agree with that. So when they came up with their first planar magnetic headphone at $1,400, I was naturally very curious. I'm very grateful that I have it in. So what follows are my honest thoughts and views by way of quick impressions. To start with specifics and specs, this has an all-metal construction, which has the effect of not making it very light. I'm so sorry for shaking this table. So this is all metal. This is metal. This is metal. This inner parts are metal. So it does look and feel more premium than the Aria, for example. I think it's prettier than the Aria, and it's got protein leather on the sides of the pads and cloth material inside, as might be evident. The cups are fairly roomy, and I have pretty large ears, and they are able to fit my head with a lot of comfort. It doesn't feel very rickety or plasticky. It just works. Right, and the clamp is minimal. It's what you expect from an open back. The weight is 1.1 pounds, so it's not very heavy. Neither is it very light. And they have a bunch of tech going on. They have a patented voice coil inside. It's dual magnets, and so it's not some off-the-shelf stuff which you expect Dunu to avoid. Dunu does sort of max out on their innovation, and they're one of the most innovative companies, I think, that comes out of China. And they cater to a wide range of audiophiles. Like I've listened to their CD player that they're coming out with, and I listened to it during CanJam Singapore. It was phenomenal. They had an R2R DAC inside. It was just amazing for a portable CD player. Okay, to now talk about sound, guys, in terms of tonality first, and then technical performance. And I've seen the frequency response graph, but my views are not going to be guided by that graph, I think, because I have listened to this off a variety of sources, a variety of amps, even the most. And I've also tried to sort of understand how much it scales with like higher quality source chains. So I am streaming Roon into my Orender N20, which you can see on the screen behind me, onto my Mola Mola Tambaki, and onto my Audma Maestro HPA1, which is a $10,000 flagship amplifier. So I've even driven this with that. So I think I was able to eke out the maximum performance of this. I've also listened to this off lower end sources from X Duo and a bunch of others that I have, which I might be reviewing soon. The TLDR is it's a fairly decent, engaging, timbrally accurate and rich and warm sounding headphone that is competitive for its price point of $1,400. So that's the TLDR. To first talk about its bass, the bass I think is somewhat the star of the show. The bass is deep. It's the bass punch in the sub bass is very real. It's tactile. I do sense that ever so slight planar timbre to the bass. So by that I mean the DK is somehow a bit quicker than I would like it to be, but it does hit hard. And in some ways it reminds me of the Abyss that you'll see over here, the 5TC, the 1266 5TC, the latest flagship from Abyss. It's not very recent. It's been a few years, of course. But this reminds me of the Abyss because it has that, tactility in its sound. So it does play heavy metal and rock really well. It's not as quick as the Abyss. That's because of the treble, I think. It doesn't have, it lacks a bit of air frequency extension. but the bass does sound very rich, very creamy, very tactile. And if these words mean something to you, then you probably want some of that sort of flavor in your stable. So it does give you that sort of a tactile bass. Moving on to mid range. So I think the mid range here is getting under noticed. It's getting underappreciated. The mid range here I think is phenomenal. So in addition to rock music, what it also does really well is vocal-based music, because both male and female vocals sound very realistic on this. Like Katie Melua on this sounds just gorgeous. The song that I like the most on this, having played a gazillion songs, honestly, the best song that I've played on this that was just very emotional for me is the Fields of Gold cover by Katie Melua. And she sounds majestic on this. She sounds intimate. She sounds hypnotic. She sounds mellifluous. She sounds amazing, guys. And in general, it's not just female vocals. Male vocals also work really well here. So mid-range is awesome. The guitars have good presence and bite. That's something I appreciated, because guitars oftentimes in somewhat laid-back headphones, which I think this is to a degree, can also sound laid-back. The guitars here do not sound laid-back. They sound present. They have attack to their notes. They have very good linear and note separation. So mid-range here gets high marks from me. As a matter of fact, it probably gets as high marks as the bass does. Treble is interesting. Like, I do think I personally crave a bit more energy up top, especially on the air frequencies. If you see the headphones I have in my stable, I have the 1266 and I have the Imanes. These are my two favorite headphones. I do crave a bit of air frequencies, because that tends to give you sort of an out-of-the-head imaging sometimes if the transducers can support it. It gives you a good separation between images. It gives you this sense of air around instruments. And I do feel that this, albeit is not claustrophobic by any means, to my liking, it misses that last bit of upper treble energy. So that's basically where I'm coming from. It is a warmer headphone, guys. I would not call it dark, but it's clearly a warm sounding headphone with good bass and good mid-range. Okay, to talk about technical performance, guys. How does it compete? This is a price point when a lot of people will just, spend a little more money and get an Aria Unveiled or a Stealth or an Organic or an HD800S, which is like a classic, or even the Focal Clear MGs or the OGs. The OGs can be had for $900. They were initially $1,500. Does this hold up with those other headphones? So I'm happy to report that for a first time, for a newcomer, for a first time, headphone, for a first attempt at a headphone, it competes. It competes tonally. It might even surpass an HD800. Tonally, as for a lot of you, it might surpass an Aria, because this is sort of an antithesis to an Aria. This is the opposite of what an Aria does. It's not wide sounding. It's not hugely wide sounding. It doesn't have the shimmery treble up top. It doesn't have a poofy bass. But the Aria stages in a grandiose fashion. The Aria is amazing for classical and stuff. This is pretty good for classical, but I don't think for a lot of audiophile genres which use treble energy really well, or can, I would prefer the Aria to this. But for more modern genres like pop and rock and EDM, this I think would be a better headphone. The Aria, I think, out-resolves this, and of that there is no doubt. I think the Aria and the 800S are all more detailed than this. So in resolution, I find this to be adequate for its price, but I find this to be ever so slightly lacking compared to the Aria and the HD800S. Okay, soundstage-wise, again, the 800S and the Aria are kings of soundstage. They're famous for their soundstage. So those headphones have a taller, wider, and deeper soundstage. This does have soundstage width, and I do think it can, on certain tracks, feel as wide as the Aria or the 800S. But overall, guys, I would not say this beats those other headphones for soundstage. Imaging, I think, is pretty decent. I think it holds its own against those headphones. Timbrally, it does outperform those headphones. So timbre here is very, very good. It sounds very realistic. And last but not the least, in terms of the sense of dynamics and punch and that sort of sense of how evident the delta between the loudest part of a track and the quietest part of a track is, this does not disappoint. It is very punchy, very dynamic, and perhaps more punchy and dynamic than an Aria or an 800S. If you hear this, it's a bit of a creaking sound, and that's because it's all metal. So, different parts are, rubbing against each other or whatever and creating a creaking sound. So guys, that's basically where I'm coming from. This is a very interesting first time sort of entry by Dunu into the planar magnetic realm, and I think they've done a very good job. Can they improve? Yes. What are the areas of improvement? I think they could have made this slightly lighter, maybe a little more plastic would have helped, because although it exudes luxury, I personally would have, forsaken a bit of the luxury appeal as long as it was built well, as long as it can hold the test of time, right? Like high-fidelity headphones are plastic, but that's not my issue with them. My issue with the high-fidelity headphones is that they fall apart sometimes. This headphone looks like it'll never fall apart, but the important point is it does add weight, and I do wish it was slightly lighter. The aesthetics here are amazing, so a big shout out to Dunu, applause. The aesthetics here are a goddamn home run. They're stunning. I don't have the box with me, but the box feels very luxurious, and there are all these cables inside too, as a matter of fact. So you do get your bang for the buck in terms of aesthetics, in terms of how luxurious unboxing is and all that. Tonality, I think you've nailed it. Like you've gone for a dark tuning and you've done it right, and kudos to you. However, I think in terms of technical performance, while I think it's adequate for the price, and this is perhaps more technical than a ZMF or Tor and many other headphones at this price point, if you are looking to compete with the Arias and the 800Ss of the world, which is very difficult, I know, this is a decent effort. I think, of course, and I do look forward to Dunu coming out with more and more headphones, because this is a very impressive first headphone. That's it, guys. I mean, I like this headphone. I would recommend you try this if you're looking for that sort of a headphone to play modern genres with. But of course, I've laid out its differences and its strengths and weaknesses vis-a-vis the more household namesy kind of headphones like the Aria and the 800S. I hope this review was useful. If this was, stay tuned to my channel, follow, like, and do all of that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.